Welcome to my Lamar University Department of Education Leadership Practicum Field Experience Leading Video, Professional Development Guidelines Focus Group Meeting. My name is David Banks. I've been a secondary career and technology education teacher and coach for 16 years at the end of the 2018-19 school year. This is currently my third year of employment at my current school of employment. The 2017-18 campus demographics found in my school's Texas Academic Performance Report goes as follows. Freshmen, 424 students. Sophomores, 502. Juniors, 503 students. Seniors, 428. Demographic socioeconomic makeup. African American, 383 students. Hispanic, 1,026. White, 160. American Indian, 7. Asian, 219. Pacific Islander, 6. 2 or more, 56. Economically disadvantaged, 1,070. Non-educational disadvantage, 787. English learners, 393. Students with disciplinary placements, 2016-17, 87. At risk, 1,274 students. Student number per teacher, 14. Faculty ethnic makeup, African American, 15.8. Hispanic, 15.2. White, 96.4. American Indian, 1.0. Asian, 1.5, Pacific Islander, 0. 2 or more, 3.0. Faculty range an average of years experience. Number of teachers, 132.9. Beginning teachers, 10.3. 1 to 5 years of experience, 37.5. 6 to 10 years experience, 32.2. 11 to 20 years experience, 32.3. Over 20 years experience, 20.5. Student academic issues of concern currently is all grades ELA and reading. Student culture and or social issues of concern out of the 4 high schools in the district, as the school is known as the school with disciplinary issues and a negative stigma. Some would say the hood school, the ghetto school. Low performing. Students have a negative attitude about achieving and school participation. The purpose of this field experience activity is to provide an opportunity for growth in communicating with faculty and staff regarding assessment of professional development, its impact on teacher professional growth, classroom instruction, and student achievement. Under the direction of the campus mentor, the candidate is instructed to plan a meeting and lead a focus group to assess the effectiveness and perceived importance that professional development has in teacher growth. The focus group should be comprised of a broad spectrum of only teachers and instructional paraprofessionals, a minimum of 4 instructional staff, and does not include the candidate, who are representative of the campus as a whole. The candidate will present their findings and recommendations to the campus leadership team. At the conclusion of the meeting, survey those in attendance regarding time and management, effective communication, collaboration, listening, and relevance of topics discussed. In planning my focus group meeting with my mentor, we discussed the time duration, that it should be 45 minutes to an hour, to make sure that we met the 35-minute minimum time duration for the activity, for the practicum activity, as well as planning relevant questions that I would also make sure that we met the 35 minutes. So had questions that would go for 45 minutes to an hour, to also make sure that way we have plenty of materials to choose from and edit and make the final cut for the practicum video activity. Also for the meeting, we discussed that I should use the upstairs conference room that had a computer outlet so I can take advantage of utilize the overhead projector so I could display the question prompts as well as the agenda for the meeting. We also discussed that I would email several prospects from each department to conduct my focus group, so that way I would make sure that I had at least 44, a minimum of 4 candidates, and it also represented the campus as a whole by having a member from each department. So I emailed about 14 to 15 potential candidates, and I got a response for about 7, and ended up with about 5 candidates to attend the meeting. To assess the effectiveness and perceived importance of current and recent professional development, I would survey the candidates from the focus group as well as following Domain 2 competencies and the CBEC Standard 7 guidelines, facilitating and organizing and utilizing professional development to stimulate professional growth for teachers and student learning. For time management, effective communication, collaboration, and listening, I will follow the principles of Robert's Rules of Order and use a meeting agenda with pre-selected question prompts and also kind of a open platform so members of the focus group will feel open and free to share and collaborate. Focus group leading video practicum activity. Location, CHS upstairs I Hall conference room, March 22nd, 2019. Attendees, David Banks, facilitator, Patrick DeLeon, John Edwards, if he shows up today, Sean Johnson, Daniel Thomas, and Joseph Hodge. And Miss Landry may be joining us as well. Start time was 3 o'clock. So as facilitator, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. The regular meeting of the Professional Development Focus Group at 3 p.m. on date and location, which is I Hall again of the conference, I Hall conference room. There are no minutes to be read since it's our first meeting for a meeting together for this focus group, Professional Development Focus Group. So the following persons, again, like I said, are that's in attendance, is Patrick DeLeon, John Edwards, Sean Johnson, Daniel Thomas, and Joseph Hodge. Since there was no previous meeting, there's no need to accept the approval of the first meetings from the first meeting. So we are good on that notion. So I'm gonna go ahead and discuss the opening issues. So today I'm meeting with you because the purpose of this focus group was an activity to provide me an opportunity for growth in the communicating with faculty and staff regarding assessment of professional development and its impact on teacher professional growth, classroom instruction, and student achievement. So, make sure that we are able to see these questions. All right, so I'll be asking several questions to assess the effectiveness of professional development, the importance of professional development and teachers' growth. Let's make sure to keep comments constructive and professional. In addition, focus on the topic of the focus group meeting. So we're going to try not to get off topic and keep within the restraints of the focus group. I want to welcome everyone for participating in this activity, and I'm thankful for your support and assistance today. So, new business. At this point, we'll go ahead and begin. So, I'm just going to read out the first question, and if you want to chime in at that point, just raise your hand and go from there. And then for each question, I would like everybody to partake in it and give a little input. Or if you don't have a lot, you can just talk about what the person before, what you agree with, and give feedback comment on their comment. So the first question on the new business is, what is the most powerful or impactful professional development activity that you have experienced?
I'll just jump in.
All right.
For me personally, can you say my name right there? Just run.
Well, you can introduce yourself because I named the attendance.
How you doing? Hi, Joe Hodge. To answer the question, what is the most powerful or impactful professional development activity that you've experienced? Recently, a couple weeks ago, we had a CTE development day where only the people in our particular area. So I teach the audio-visual production. It was all of the audio-visual production at the surrounding schools, Pflugerville, Hendrickson, Wise, and even one or two of the middle schools. And that was helpful because we got to strictly talk about what we do, what the lesson plans are, what's helpful, what's not. And it was just really helpful for us because this is all that we do. And we didn't really focus on other things. We just looked at stuff that pertained to what we do. And I think the value for the buck per se, for the time that we were there, that was very beneficial for us.
So, I was going to say, for me, being a new teacher, I just recently went to an ESL Academy for 2 days, and it helped me out tremendously. So I have a lot of students that are beginner or intermediate speakers, in English, and so I feel like I learned a lot of lessons that I can, or in sentence stems and different things that I can do for them to help them out. So I think that helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had several students. I had one Vietnamese student that just got here. It was his first year here last year, and just learning those strategies to work with ESL students was a great asset because I didn't know what to do. He was ESL. He spoke. His English was very limited. I didn't have, at least with your Hispanic students, you have bilingual students that speak Spanish and English, but I didn't have anybody that spoke Vietnamese and spoke English, so I had nobody to help him in class. So those strategies are
they helped me out a lot. Because before it was just Mr. and you had to dive in a little bit more, but so it's coming along.
I had I went to a restorative discipline seminar. I used to be a restorative discipline coordinator, and so I got the opportunity earlier this year to go and become like a trainer, and so do a trainer deal, and that was really helpful because I got to go and not only did I do high school, but I got to go and work with the elementary, and I got to go work with the middle school, and then the high school. And then after that, we got to sit down with the principals from the administration from elementary, middle school, and high school. So we get to see a lot of background stuff and hear about their concerns and okay, well, how do we do this and how do we work this out, and it's working here but it's not working here type stuff. And so it was helpful because I got to learn a lot of the systematic regulations and how to intertwine our program so that it can efficiently work within the discipline system. And so I've kind of brought a lot of that stuff back to Conley so that we can start implementing things. We got a lot of students that we're trying to support behavior-wise that are missing out on the academic part because the social part is so the relationship is so tethered and torn and kind of blown away there.
Is that part of like the restorative justice deal or something?
Mm-hmm. So it's restorative justice, restorative discipline, kind of the same thing. They have those different names, but it's the same type of program, same kind of process. It worked big time for it. That's the only reason I bought into it. At first, when I heard about it, I was like, I think everybody has that initial react, but then when you actually learn how to work it, you learn how to implement it right. That way, everybody's satisfied. And we got to the point where the teachers were satisfied, principals, students were satisfied, teachers were satisfied, principals were satisfied. So everybody brought in, and it was like, okay, we do it school wide. And so, we've been doing some practice here, and it's been beneficial for some kids. I know one kid in particular was in lockdown, but this has helped her go and actually be able to go to class now instead of being in one room all day.
That's a big jump.
Man, I'm telling you, yeah, some struggles. But she's out.
That's always what you want, positive upward mobility. So that's what you want. So, as being an instructional coach in here, what would be the most powerful or impactful professional development activity?
So I've seen a lot of, I've been lucky to go to a lot of professional development, and I would say just, for me from a very personal level, the most impactful professional development I've been to was the first time that I went to an AVID training.
Okay.
And I didn't know anything about AVID, and we were just starting on the campus, and they spent a lot of time at the beginning, it was like a 3-day summer professional development. So you were focused intently on AVID and what AVID was about. They spent a lot of time explaining the why of AVID and the idea that you're reaching those middle kids and you're reaching first-time college kids and what it was really about. As part of that process, they had kids who had been through the AVID program get up and talk to, it's like at a hotel ballroom, right? So this big giant room full of people, and the kids get up there and talk about like what AVID did for them and what it meant to them. And I mean, there were people in the room crying because the stories are really powerful. And so then you hear those stories, and then now they say, all right, now you're going to go to this training. And so you were focused on the training because you're like, man, I want to have an impact like that on the kids back at our school. Let's learn what this is about and how we can help kids, and we want our kids telling stories like that. So it just was really well structured in that you knew as you walked into the rooms to do the classes and do the learning, you knew why you were there. It was clear why you were there, and you had that extra motivation of yep, this can really make an impact. Let's make this happen. So that made it really powerful for me.
Okay. So the next question is, why was it powerful and meaningful to you? Most of you already answered why. I mean, does anybody want to add to that? I mean, everybody did pretty much after you commented.
Yeah, I think what I saw in all of the stories was just the idea that everyone kind of got something that you could go back and use right away. And you learn stuff in all of our examples. We learned stuff that then we were like, okay, we're going to go back, and this is going to help us impact our students right now, the next day, and there was a sense too of like, this is what you needed.
Right.
I needed this.
Right.
This is a tool that I didn't have that now I have, that I'm going to be better because of it. And I think that makes it powerful in my experience. If you can have that kind of, takeaway from the professional development, then, it was valuable to you.
That's good, because exactly, I think there's plenty of times, I don't think there's no such thing as a bad PD, because for somebody it was useful. But a lot of times you go to professional development and you're like, this wasn't useful, something that you can take back and use for your classroom right now. It wasn't that it was bad strategies or best practice, it just wasn't something that was applicable for you. So I don't think there's no bad ones, but it's definitely useful when you grab one, like, okay, I can go to my classroom and use it now and impact my classroom now. No, thank you for attending. So Ms. Lange is with us now. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. So how effective are our professional development opportunities? So here on our campus, how do you feel, how effective are our professional development opportunities?
I think they're pretty good. We go to. It's a little bit different to go to professional development after school. I'm used to it happening in the morning or during the afternoon. But it works out because then I get to stay and I don't miss. I can get this stuff done during the day and then go to development afterward, and that kind of works pretty good too.
Okay. So with you so a lot of your PD happens after your teaching duty.
Yeah, I would say most of it during the year. Okay. We usually go after, and they adapt. The district has adapted it to where we even go online sometimes. So I can be in my classroom and go online, and we've had a couple of PDs like that. And pretty video conferences. Those are real cool.
So this is geared towards your duty here on campus. So go ahead. What you was
I
gonna say?
think that the aides, that we need to provide more professional development for some of our teaching assistants.
Okay.
I mean, sitting in a room for T-test doesn't really apply to them, yet they have to sit there. I think we need to develop some sort of professional development that will affect them in the classroom and the kids that they work with.
Anybody else? How effective do you feel our PD's been? It could be this year or last year.
I think overall, I think PDs are effective, period, right? It gives us the information that we need to have. Just for the sake of the question, if I'm comparing the types of PD, I think the concentrated, like I said, when we all met from our one particular group, those are effective as well, and you get more concentrated for your area, kind of compared to general or broad, like you were saying, where you might have a TA who may not need to know about the T-test. And so, but overall, I think you definitely need the PDs, and it's the good information, just kind of very on tight.
I also think it depends on the person, because you can make a PD as applicable to you as you can, but then you've got the other person sitting next to you that's on a computer playing games, so.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think for me, being a new teacher, when it's more content-based, if it's just my content or just my social studies, it helps me out more than just overall. It's a lot of information coming at me as it is already, so if I can limit that and cut that down, it helps me more individually.
I understand that. I would say too, like a lot of times I'm career technology, so I don't get to, my POCs are with other singletons, so I don't get to talk directly curriculum and content for my class. So when I get to go to district and I'm talking with everybody in the district that teaches the same classes, those are always great to hear what everybody else is doing, what strategies they're using, what best practices, what they're using for their curriculum. If it's not a district mandated one that everybody's doing, it's always good to have those resources.
Yeah, I think for me, that's the kind of the line that I would draw is you have those sessions that they call professional development, but really it's just like mandatory trainings, right?
Yes.
And then you have the professional development that's really meant to improve your practices and help you become a better teacher. And I think for me, in a lot of cases, you're not going to be able to eliminate the mandatory training kind of stuff because it's mandatory. But if you can make the other sessions as specific as you can to what's going to affect individual teachers or groups of teachers, and then the other thing is giving teachers, differentiating for the teachers. So you've got first-year teachers, you've got 20-year veterans. They don't necessarily need the same type of professional development. So whether that's by giving them a choice or giving them options, like saying you can do, even like with online, saying you can pick one of these classes to take online and that'll count. So I think the district overall has moved more in that direction, which I think is good. But I think maybe we could move even a little more in that direction. There's some room over there to move a little bit more into that differentiated, give us choice, let us do something we value and that we want to do. So.
Okay, so the next question I kind of think touches on that a little bit. It says, are there adequate opportunities provided for professional development? And what you're saying, like going at the direction to make it more personal for teachers or individualized and differentiated, I think those are the opportunities. Or am I just reading that question wrong when it says, are there adequate opportunities? 'Cause I think we get plenty of PD.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the problem, is getting enough that is differentiated for the different teachers, for their needs,
But
for their students.
I think too, like for me, I'm going to Avid this summer. So, but it's about teachers going out and looking for the PD as well.
Yeah.
Going out and taking those courses or taking the initiative to go to the PDs that they need to go to. So, to become better teachers. Unless if it's just forced on you, then it's not the same.
And you say that in the next step, I think, does the district or school support other PDs outside of the school, right? If there's a CTE conference when they're going to be talking about some stuff, do they support me going over there and getting some information from there?
And that's all about funding.
Yeah, it's a different game, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Because
big, that was the
Region
first question when well, how else? Well, you give it to us.
Yeah, so that's another one. So outside of the mandated district PD, how frequently are teachers able to go out and seek PD? And I mean, haven't done a lot since I've been in this school district. I know in other school districts, there was, I mean, you could definitely, there was one every year that they would pay for, and depending on what it was, if they approved the reasoning behind it, they would do it. But you definitely got one where you can go to PD conference. And I mean, maybe you can touch on that for PFISD. Do they?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on what you teach and what's available. I don't think there's a universal answer to that question. Like, for example, most of the core content areas, certainly Avid is available because that's a big push on our campus still. Within like the 4 main content areas, you have the potential to go to like AP training over the summer, that kind of thing. And it's certainly something that I find almost universally they'll pay for. I think when you get into more of our electives and our CTE classes, it becomes a little more difficult just in terms of like, where is it? Are we gonna have to pay for a hotel room? You know, like, there's some factors there that I think limit, just in terms of the funds we have, your ability to go. But that's where I feel like doing things, the district taking the initiative to do things like your opportunity you talked about, of just meeting with the other teachers within the district. That doesn't involve hotel costs, it doesn't involve, you know, an airplane ticket. So it's really, yeah, just the cost of a sub, and you guys can collaborate and share ideas and make that happen. So I think for me, you know, even on as a core content area teacher with English, even the little bit that we were able to do that, it was really helpful to just talk with the other English teachers from the other schools to share strategies and what's worked, what hasn't worked. So, I mean, though that might not be seen as a traditional professional development in the sense of you're not going somewhere, you're not paying for something, you're not buying a book, but just that idea of getting to collaborate with other people.
I think that's key though, the whole collaborating with other people, not just by yourself.
And I've got to do it a couple of different ways. I've with certain PDs, they're so special and specialized, you know. And our admin has brought a couple of us in and said, hey, you're going here, you're going there. You know, in my last district, then we were able to select them all during the summer. You know, we did them all during the summer, and then they got away from that. So the past like 3 years, we came in all at week 1, a week early, and it was all mandatory. So we did it like that. So that was different. It was cool because you don't have to worry about any PD. But I mean, when you come a week early. I mean,
by Wednesday, you're zoned out.
You hit it, you know. And they did good the last year I was there, they did real good because it was all mandatory stuff. And so they swept everybody through everything mandatory that the district wanted. And then we had 2 days of just curriculum and classroom preparation. It was nice. So yeah, it was pretty good.
What would you do to improve professional development and why? Like if you had the opportunity, what would you do to improve professional development and why?
I think a lot of that was answered in the last.
We have answered, yeah.
Mine would be takeaways, you know, takeaways. Like I learned that actually at a PD. There was this guy, and he pretty much been at a lot of different multiple levels, you know, all the way up until I think he's like assistant superintendent or something like that for a district, and that was his big thing, like takeaway. So he did like multiple PD sessions, like different sessions, but you had like either a book or you had like a deal. He limited his number of participants and stuff like that, so it was hard to get into them. But you got in there, you about to get some curriculum, you got to get some DVDs, you know what I mean? You got to, and so his whole PD was teaching you how to work this curriculum. You go back, this is what you do, and it was real practical. Like it was almost like it was basically like he was the instruction manual. Here are the tools. Here's how you enter it in. It was real short and sweet. Took breaks in there. It was good.
Which is a whole lot better than 3 hours of sitting and listening. Because, I mean,
you go out in the groups, you try it, you run. What problems did y'all run into? Okay, here's my contact. Email me sheet. You know, he has a saying that I still use is, I call me if you run into trouble because I can find the answer faster than you can. If you're in trouble with it, just call me. Let me know. I'll shoot you back there. And so that's kind of how hands-on he was. I mean, we had a big old, we had a huge, what's the after-school deal? It was after-school ACE, they used to call it after-school centers on education. So it was one of those, and we were in Louisiana, and he was killing it.
So it was national.
Yeah, it was a national conference. It was a national conference. I got to present up there, and then we went to all this like a 3-day thing, and it was cool. So now I try to do takeaways whenever I can.
So as a first year teacher, what would you do to improve professional development?
I think just like Coach Thomas was saying, just less direct instruction, just varying it up. Yeah, that's it. The PDs I've been to, it's just straight PowerPoint, direct instruction. I feel it's boring. I don't get much.
I can read it.
Yeah, I can read it myself, if that was the case. So I think for me being a first year teacher, just less direct instruction, that's it.
Yeah, I think for me, the difference between, professional development that I would even want to call professional learning and what traditionally I would think of like professional development is that difference between just sitting and getting and, someone talking at you the whole time versus you're doing things to practice the skill, you're getting feedback from the person about that. The person's, a big thing that I try and do is whenever I'm doing anything with professional development or working with teachers is that I'm going to model and show what I'm talking about so that they can go through it the way like a kid would go through it in their classroom and see like, well, this is what I like about this. Well, this is challenging, or hey, this made me feel a little uncomfortable. So then when they go to do it in their classroom, they know like, hey, I know this might make you feel a little weird to do this, but you're going to do this and it'll work out. So they can kind of share their experience and even say, like I've been in people's classrooms where they've said like, well, when I did this, when I was shown how to do this, I had trouble with this part of it. So to kind of share that experience with the kids when then they're asking the kids to do the same thing that they were asked to do. So that's always a challenge sometimes because it's easier as the person doing it to just show you a bunch of slides and be like, you guys got it? Good? Okay. And then you're done. But working that in makes it much more effective and makes it a more enjoyable experience too, because I just personally, I don't want to get up there and just read a bunch of slides. Every once in a while we get someone from the district that's like, you need to present this, and it needs to be presented this way, and you have to use these slides, and you're like, okay,
here we go.
I can show them slides. Like, if that's what you want me to do, I'll do it. So.
And I'll co-sign what you're saying, because I learned a lot from you when you did that stuff. I remember one time, Think, Pair, Share that you showed us in there, and I'm gonna use it for my class. I actually did it, and this being my second year, I still use a lot of stuff from like the Region 13 stuff that we learned, and it's good to see it, demonstrate it, be a part of it, and then so it worked with the kids. And so I'm just checking what you said. It does work and it's very effective that way. So.
Okay. Good. All right. Moving on to F. Who do you think should decide what professional development looks like and what topics are covered?
I think the district ultimately decides, but I think each campus and each department should have input into that. Because the campus and the departments know what the individual needs are of their teachers, and they need to develop it or, make it their own.
Make it their own. And then, I would even say even down to what their students need, because everything we do should reflect back on our goal to meet the students' goals. So every campus is different. So yeah, you have this district goal and what they have in mind, but then every campus is going to be different where they stand on that scale.
Yeah, I think, obviously those decisions get made at different levels depending on what they're covering, but I do agree with you that I think the more you can turn that over to be something that is, one, focused on, in particular, students and a particular skill you're wanting them to learn, but then also that the teachers have some say in that. And that comes down to like the teacher buy-in too. Like the more you can have teachers have an input into what they're going to do as their professional development, the more buy-in there is for them actually paying attention versus being on their cell phone or being on their laptop or whatever. So that's certainly an issue.
Ms. Rico?
Oh, no, I understand, I knew you might have got called out. Thank you for attending. Sean, did you share yet? Who do you think should decide what professional development looks like and what topics are covered?
I just agree with being the department chair of the content area. I think they know the most, and the department chair of the content area. For me, social studies, so it'd be Mr. A would be choosing what professional development that I need for the students, and I think he's most, attuned to what they need.
Okay. Do you think that you as a teacher should be also able to give input to him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I should be able to give input, but I think he should have the say on what, what professional development he thinks is best for me. And being, a career teacher for longer than me being a first year teacher, so I think his experience. But I think he should value what I have to say in my input.
So with that input, I mean, he definitely knows but based on like what kind of like things you're struggling with, what things you would like to improve on, give him that, then he can say, okay, you might want to try this, or is that what you mean by that?
Yeah. I think that, but like I feel like I have a good rapport with my department, chair. So I would go up to him and just ask him, what can I do to, better help this lesson out? Or I am having trouble with, my classroom management on this part. So just having that rapport, and over time, having the rapport with your department chair, you should gather that information. I would think so, and say, okay, it seems like you're struggling with this area, or classroom management. Maybe you need to do a PD for classroom management, or lesson plan, whatever the case may be.
Okay. Mr. Hodge, you ready?
Yeah, I think the teacher's input should be highly valued. We're kind of the ones in the trenches, we're the ones hands-on with the students, and I think we're the ones that really see if ultimately these things work or not. And so having our input and even deciding, we need to talk more about this should be something that's valued by the people who put on these PDs. So my vote would be for teachers.
For teachers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because outside of the mandated district PD, when it comes to differentiating, most of the time, that's teachers are picking that. I need this. When you go off to state or national, out-of-state conferences, you're the one picking that.
Right.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
In my experience, I've been for 16 years, the ones that I did personally, what I felt like I needed, I chose. I didn't, not to say that, my department head didn't like, oh, this is great, or didn't recommend it sometimes. Hey, you might want to check this out. I think this is something that would be great for your content area. Support your students or support what you're doing. So, that happened. But I think a lot of times teachers end up picking what fits them and what they really need the most a lot of times.
Right.
But then, like as Alshon said, he's first year teacher, but even not first year teachers, you can be 10 years in, and then you just get comfortable, and then you get complacent, and then next thing you know, you're like, I'm not feeling like I'm struggling with this. And then you go to your department head who specialize, and they're department head for a reason, hopefully, that they can help you with that. Like, okay, based on what you're dealing with, they should be able to recommend this can help you. Hopefully, this can help you. You would like to have that kind of, assistance from your department head, or even your administrator, your AP. So I definitely agree with that.
I feel like that too, but I feel like on this campus I can go, like I feel like I'm comfortable to go to Mr. DeLeon's office and ask him, hey, I think I've done that before. I went to your office, hey, can you help me out with this? Or, I know it's not just so much on PD, but in that aspect.
Yes, sir. Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the next topic. If you were designing a professional development opportunity, opportunity, what would it look like and what would you include? So you was designing a PD that you, since we're on this campus, what would you think based on what you observed? Or if you want, you can go on something different, but since we're, the focus group for this campus, if you was to develop a professional development opportunity from what you observed on this campus, from your experiences with your students, teachers, administrators, what what would you like? What would it look like, and what would you include?
I would want at least an administrator and an administrator from each school, and then the behavior department is like, you just got to do with your audio visual. You know what I'm saying? We just coming together and figuring out which ideas and which methods and which implementations are they seeing the most results from? You know, okay, so what do you guys, and as far as transitioning, I think we can thicken that line of transitioning between kids to give us some little awareness on who's coming up, some things that ought to work with these kids. Some of these kids on as far as how they're receiving services, are they oppositionally defined, are they social maladjusted, are they emotionally disturbed? You know, just mapping out those lines, because when the kids come to us, the behavior restrictions increase so vastly. It's a panic with a lot of students, because we really have to get them to pass classes. You know, you really have to get them in a state to where they can socially interact with some students, with some teachers, because we have a small time frame, and they're gonna start to mature. They're not gonna want people. They're not gonna want mentor Eugene following them around anymore. They want to be on their own. And so we want to allow them to be on their own, because when we prevent it, that becomes a trigger in itself. Yeah. And so, and I know that kind of looks really wild how we're doing it right now, because we have to allow them those freedoms. And some kids, when they go in some classes, they just want to attack the teacher, you know, verbally, usually, not really physically, but mostly verbally when they come in there. So I think that'd be beneficial.
I think something that I would be interested in seeing is, you know, maybe we have a PD beginning of the year or early on, something that's engaging, maybe have some small groups within it. Maybe talk about different classroom management strategies, specifically, you know, like the cell phones, how to handle that, or just minimize distractions, and just effective ways, you know, to have an effective classroom would be something that I, you know, wouldn't mind seeing or putting together for people.
And what's the ultimate reason that you would like to see that?
I mean, the ultimate reason is at the end of the day, is the students to retain information. And so I think removing the distractions out of the way and then making it fun, hence the engagement part, will make it stick together and make it more fun for the students, and something that they hold on to. I think the majority of the teachers that I talk to, it's hit and miss with the cell phones. Like in my classroom, I tell them to put them up. This is something I have to say like 10 times a classroom, right? And then what are I would like to know what some other strategies teachers use that are successful, or are most teachers dealing with this problem, right? Just hearing others. They're not necessarily be my department, but others, you know, maybe a small group or something like that might work.
I agree with you, because, you know, a lot of teachers, they're doing the Kahoot thing, so they're allowing the kids.
Well, yeah.
So you engaging them with the cell phone, which is what they want to be on, but once you give them that access, then what?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the result, the end result? Are you getting the positive result that you wanted, or is it becoming a...
100%, because like sometimes we do free creative writing in my class, and that's where we're writing 2 to 3 pages, and I allow them to listen to the music of their choice if it's going to help them flow and, you know, and write. And then what's to say in the middle of that, you know, they're writing, and then ding, and they just look over, you know, what you know, messages came in, and now they're distracted, right? So, you know, what other strategies that people use, right? So that's what I was saying.
So, Sean's the first year teacher.
This one's a tough one for me, because I haven't mentioned too many professional developments, so for me to design my own, I would go with Mr. Hodge as well. It's smaller group sessions. I think when you do it as a big group, or even if we're in a pack, it's not as meaningful. You know? So I would address that, and then a lot of it, for me too, is a lot of the classroom management stuff, and just going along those lines. Cell phones is another issue that I have in my class as well, and I just don't know if that's just the culture of the kids we have nowadays. You know, it's always on the cell phone. It's like another limb, in a sense. But to stay on topic, what would it look like, small groups, or what would I include? For me, I'm just a sponge, so I need more just PD, in itself.
Use
So
best practice.
anything that can help me with becoming a better teacher, getting my students more engaged, differentiating my lessons, and so I can hit all target students, whether it's ESL or SPED or on level, advanced, or whatever they may be. So I need it. So that's what I would include.
I think for me, in a very general sense, not to get on to a specific topic necessarily, but I totally agree with the idea. I think sometimes being in the pack is obviously a necessity for some of the things we do, but I don't find it very conducive to true professional learning. Like you can sit and get in a big theater like that, but even having stood up there and done things like getting people to get up and move around, can't really do that very well. Me actively monitoring, and even when we do have you guys talk in that setting, it's hard for me to kind of walk around and hear what people are saying to kind of know what's being said. So it's not a very good learning environment. So I think the idea of having that happen in smaller settings, in more of like a classroom size setting, would certainly be beneficial. And then the big thing for me, like we've already kind of said before, is that you're giving the teachers, or if I'm at the professional development, I'm getting something that I can take away and use, and hopefully that person's letting me practice that, either myself or putting me through that process, so I can understand and really get that concept and how it would work, and start to think about how I might do that in my specific content area. If they're giving me an example from a different content area, how would I adjust that to work in my content area? So that's a big thing for me, is am I gonna walk away with something useful? So I think making sure that whenever you have a professional development opportunity like that, that you're giving people something to either physically walk out of there with, or a skill that they've practiced that they can walk out of there with and implement right away. That's a big thing for me, because otherwise it's kind of,
It falls on.
you're just doing your time.
You know what I mean?
So with that, so what I'm hearing from the majority of the group is the small, conducive groups are better. So it's because of the collaboration. You got more engagement. It's easier for, like you said, for the instructor facilitator to walk around and interact with the people in a small group versus a big group. Like Friday before we went on spring break, I'm sitting in front of everybody, and I was nervous the first time doing it, but you just feel like you're just talking to a large group of people and you're not really getting to interact and let the personal come out and engage in that. Because a lot of times that's, like they say, the hooks that, get people. When you get those interactions and, that real world application, and you kind of hold on to it, because if you got that personal connection to it, and, you retain it better and you hold on to it. When you get to talk to it, there's a bunch of people, it's just like, I don't need this, it's a bunch of information. You pull out your phone, but when it's in a smaller group, you kind of tend to dive in a little bit. Your attention span is more into it. I feel.
Sure.
So I think small is always better than large.
Definitely,
And then depending, if you're just trying to give data, like results from from testing, your TAPR, that a lot of times you could also give to people and they can read it, but then how everybody's gonna read it.
Right.
But for things like that, I think that's great for the PAC. Boom, this is what's going on. We need everybody to know this kind of information, versus professional learning where you're taking things away. I think it was better for more conducive to smaller groups. So I definitely agree with that. All right, so second to last topic, in what area is professional development most beneficial? So what area do you think that professional development, or as Mr. DeLeon says, professional learning is beneficial? So, as a teacher, you can even come from an administrative point of view, whichever one works for you. So if you put yourself through the lens of administrator, or definitely teachers, so that's not hard to do, but if you could give me examples as administrator or a teacher, I'll take either one. So in what area is professional development most beneficial?
I think the bottom line for me is if what you're going through, no matter what your content area, no matter what level of education you're at in terms of elementary to high school, if what you're learning as a teacher is going to help you better help kids, then that's beneficial. And so that's kind of a guiding principle for me is this going to help the kids increase their achievement? And sometimes that's because it's a behavior issue, but that's still, if we can fix that behavior issue, that's going to increase their achievement. Sometimes it's very specific to, the skills and the content that you're teaching that, okay, this is going to help them increase their achievement. But for me, that's the bottom line about the benefit of it is it gonna help the kids? And yeah, it might directly be helping the teachers and then indirectly help the kids, but the more we can make it have a direct impact on students, the more beneficial it's gonna be.
And then for me, I think it's kind of very similar to what you're saying, but for me can I reasonably apply this in my classroom or easily apply it when I'm learning, or is it going to take me way out of my way just to make this point? Is it something I can easily implement and apply daily?
Yeah, you gotta be able to implement it.
Yeah.
Because then I guess if you can't easily implement it, then it becomes unpractical.
Yeah. So.
And then you like.
Just something else you got to do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Or some of you don't do because you're just like, all right, sure, yeah, I'll go do that, and then you just, nothing ever comes of it. It just becomes a binder on your shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like widening my knowledge of what I'm dealing with. I really like to do that because I like to know, and I think with dealing with SPED, it's just so many case by case things that you have to like go through and study to figure out, can you do this, can you do that, what does this abbreviation mean, all this little small little parameters and stuff, and it makes you feel like you're being closely regulated, because what you do is just so your plan and things that you put together for these kids are just it's so important in a lot of situations for them to graduate. So it kind of, you want to know what you're doing because there's a lot of pressure behind it, and we're going to meet with parents face to face. We're going to that R meeting, meet with the kids there, the parents right there, and the administrators are right there, and so everybody wants to know what we're gonna do to help this kid. And so I think if it widens my understanding of processes or methods or shortcuts even that I can do, or just getting templates, that's a big help in a lot of cases. Just so I can just see how it's done, and to match with what was taught to me, or what was presented to me, how it needs to be done. It's pretty cool.
Okay. I'm definitely in agreement. I mean, it's definitely comes down to helping the kids. So whatever you're doing should be helping the kids. And this is not one of the questions, but being in education, which a lot of professions, do you really feel that like professional development is needed?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Especially for me being a first year teacher. Like you were saying, all these professional development, even today, is stuff I can take and put in my toolbox. And maybe I may not use it this year, but it might come along next year or the year after that I can take it and apply it. So yeah, I do believe it's beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. You need something, whether it's your first year or just your 20th year, and how you can still realign or relate to the students at this age or level. So yeah.
Because as you go through education, you start going through different generations.
Yeah.
So the kids gonna change. What you did 20 years, that may not work, or the first 10 years you started teaching. So I definitely think that PD is necessary. I mean, if we're gonna continue to reach our students, and we want our students to be, we always talk about we want them to be lifelong learners, but as educators, we should be doing the same. You should be always fine-tuning yourself. Nothing's perfect. You can always get better. So, with that being said, the last thing before we adjourn this meeting is on our campus, since you know we're here, in what areas is professional development inadequate? So we got a first year, so you may be limited, but you know, out of the stuff you experienced this year, what was something that you felt like we really didn't need to spend that time doing? We could have been doing something more productive.
I would say just stuff like district policy stuff that I could probably do on my own.
Okay.
I don't need a big setting for it, or you can send me down on a computer and I can, you know, read through it and take a test at the end. It's still professional development, but in that case, I feel like that should be one-on-one, you know, instead of in a group setting. I don't know, I didn't think about that. It's a little bit further.
I mean, that was a good answer that you gave. We'll come back around if there's anything else that you want to share. Mr. Thomas?
My main thing is, and I hate when I go to professional development and the policies are different. I'm starting to run into that now because I switched districts. Well, the policies are different. So, and you look at it. I learned directly from TEA. So, but then you learn state policy is different, can differ from, or can be similar to federal policy, and then that can change by district policy. So now you may get, so a lot of times you may get some stuff that the state is in here, like the state wants to do this, but the federal policy does this, so the district policy is this. And so in the federal policy trumps the state policy, and that's why the district policy is like that. So you gotta know about these policies and stuff like that. So I hate to be in front already. I hate to be already at the show, and I don't know the layout. You know what I mean? I hate to be there, and I don't know what's expected of me at anything. Now I don't mind being. It doesn't inconvenience me to be pulled in on the fly. I like to be incorporated, so I never had a problem with that. So being told the day of or being told an hour before or anything, as long as it's some consideration that I'm gonna need a little bit of preparation time, that doesn't upset me. But being there and just being blindsided, and if we didn't know, it could have been addressed before we got there. It doesn't frustrate me and it doesn't really make me mad, but it just makes me feel unaccomplished. And so now I'm gonna immediately go back and I'm gonna study that rule and I'm gonna make sure I know how it goes down. So if it's being manipulated by some of the kids or something like that, I can catch that and I can adjust and I can put in another set for it, like a fail safe to make sure that I'm preventing that from happening.
Okay.
Instead of prolonging it.
So you don't want to find out.
I want to know.
You don't want to find out at the end of the day after something happened, like this policy was in effect and you never got it.
Well, not even that. I just don't want to come to handle a problem and not know district policies
Gotcha.
or important policies or really like red line bold under. You know, yeah, I want to know that. Because I don't want to go against that because it's that way. Because if you do it, it's trouble.
It's there.
You know.
So basically, if you coming in as a new employee to a district, your PD should be, these are things that you should follow.
Those real important things. Heck yeah, man, because I'm not going to come anywhere and just try to just bounce in and bounce out. You know, I'll try to stay, if I'm choosing a place to go work, I want to stay there, you know. So like, I know this didn't happen with this actual policy, but it's one that we have. But they let us know in the beginning of the year. We go to Samba training and they say, hey, this is a no escort district. And then they give you all these different situations of this is not acceptable. This kid is in a wheelchair. He hits people all the time, and so you want to put his brakes on so we can and put him in the back of the classroom so he doesn't hit people. That's restricting his movement. That's a form of escort. We're gonna terminate you for that.
Oh wow.
You know, so stuff like that. If you're standing in front of it, you can't restrict the kid's movement. So if you get a kid that's running away, all you can do is please come please come. You know what I mean? So and that's good.
Wow.
I need to know that. But it's good when I go in the Coach Johnson classroom and this kid is just sitting back in his chair, MFing, and I'm sitting up there going, hey, you need to step outside. And he goes, well, I can't grab him. I go, you know what? Yeah, you can't do it. Or I can't, you know, if he's coming, if he's trying to enter in the door, I can't stop. I can't put my hand up against that door and prevent him from going in there. That's restricted. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's definitely if you go to definitely need to have that in PD. If you don't get that,
Oh yeah. You gone.
you go. Then how you gonna hold me accountable for it if you didn't perform?
Hey, you know how that goes.
But
Yeah, you
can't
get in
be
front of
ignorant.
you get in front of the wrong people, and they go, "I'm sorry."
That's
I've
how-
been informed, but that does not change. Now you gotta get some other people to fight for you.
Ignorance is not a valid plea. Okay.
I think that's your point's well made. And I think honestly that even though that was very specific to your,
Yeah,
content,
my-
what you do in your job, I think that and in terms of like the inadequacy of the professional development, like sometimes teachers aren't taught even what that is. Like you're expected to do this, and you're like, what's that? How do I do that? Well, you know how to do that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't. No,
I don't know what that means.
Can you please? So that idea of like, and sometimes that happens, because stuff gets overlooked, but sometimes it happens because like, there have certainly been cases where, 3 months into the school year, they decide, we're gonna start doing this. It's like, well, I've been doing whatever for 3 months, and now you're gonna tell me I need to do this, but you didn't really tell me what that looks like, what am I doing? So, and that happens in various ways, in my years of teaching, different times in different ways. But I feel like that's the idea of the true inadequacy of professional development is when you start expecting teachers to do things or to know things that they don't know, and you haven't provided the training or the learning that needs to take place to be able to do those things that you expect. That's not fair. That doesn't benefit anybody, because now people just feel like you're picking on them, and you're not getting the benefit that you want to see by having teachers do that strategy or whatever. You're not getting that either because the teacher doesn't know how to do that. So it's not doing you any good to do that. So the idea of just making sure teachers are prepared and know what you want them to know and what they need to know, in your case, what they really need to know to do their job and keep their job. So I feel like that's where, in my experience, professional development's kind of fallen down is, like, you're telling me to do this and I don't know how to do it, and you're kind of acting like I should just automatically know, but I don't automatically know. You gotta tell me. You gotta teach me.
Teach me, give me the practices to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should show me a PowerPoint or a video of somebody doing it is not going to make it practical to me to be able to do it. It may work for this guy next to me, but again, that's when it comes to differentiation. How to be able to make sure I know how to do it so I can help my students achieve.
Oh yeah. And I'm not saying that to say that that happens a lot. I just know that there is a keen awareness that teachers are tough to teach because they're such good learners. You know what I mean? Teachers are really good learners. I've met some teachers that aren't the smartest, or may not know a lot about other subjects, but they're really good learners. That makes them hard to teach because they're already on top of what you're trying to teach them, like right now, and they're already trying to figure out how they would teach that as you're trying to teach it to them. Or they already feel like they mastered it. So. This is what this is about.
Okay, so
For me, I honestly think when we talk about Conley, I think Conley made a strategic play to remove the inadequate development. I remember last year, before we left, took like an exit survey specifically on PD, and what did you think about it, and how do you want to see it? And I think they implemented it this year, and we have less PD, but I think it's more focused. Meaning, at the beginning, and then we have a couple of days here and there, but it's less overall spread out just on basic stuff, and they gave us a little bit more classroom time. So I think, I would say Conley took a strategic plot to get rid of the inadequate stuff and give us more focus on what we need to do, classroom time or preparation, what would be my answer to that.
do you feel you get more collaboration with your department peers and?
Well, yeah. From ECT, I especially love it. I feel like my department is willing to, and I can only speak for my department. I'm not around other departments, but it's a comfortable environment, it's a family environment where everyone appears to be willing to help and jump in and get the task completed. So yeah, I think it's a good vibe.
So I know y'all always doing some. But you're English, right?
Yeah.
English. So I know you're department head, but do you feel like the teachers in your department are feeling like they're getting what they need to so they're not being inadequate with the PD that they're getting?
Yeah, so the PD and how that works with the English department has changed a little bit every year that I've been involved in the role I'm in now. And so I feel like it's much more, I've tried to turn it over much more to the teachers telling me what they need as opposed to me saying like, oh, we're gonna do this because this is what I think you need. But part of that too comes from just developing a trust relationship with the teachers so that they feel like they can come to me. And really, I'm just a teacher too. In many cases, I'm just teaching the teachers. So it comes from me seeing what they're doing in class and giving them feedback on that. Sometimes it's just emailing them stuff like, hey, here's that thing you were talking about. Here's one way you can do it, kind of thing. And sometimes it's, physically handing them something, a book over something that, hey, that thing you were talking about, this will help you with that. So it's not always necessarily, and that's again thinking about it in terms of professional learning, it's not always like you have to sit and listen to me talk about something, but it's sometimes just being that facilitator who can get them what they need in a timely manner where maybe they don't have to go searching for it, but I can, give them something based on the feedback they give me. Sometimes it is a very direct conversation that you have, where teachers say, I need this. You say, okay, let's sit down and we'll talk about that, or we'll walk through how to do that. But certainly other times there is like, okay, the whole group needs this. Well, let's sit down and we'll talk about how we can do that. So it really, that's to me where it comes down to that differentiation of, the more you can make it specialized to a given person or a given content area or a given need, the better, the more effective it's going to be, the same way it is in the classroom. Even in a classroom of 25 kids, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. And if you're trying to make it that, it's just like a one-size-fits-all T-shirt. It's not going to fit everybody the same. And so you want to make it, I heard the phrase the other day, a one-size-fits-one. So as much as you can, you want to kind of specialize and give everybody what they need in a way that they need it. And when you do that, that's when I think real growth happens with teachers.
Okay. So pretty much as a department head, you coach, facilitator, advisor.
Yeah.
Counselor.
Counselor.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Okay. So did you think of anything else, or was you good?
No, I think you guys hit it. All the main points. I don't really have anything else.
All right. Well, if anybody has anything else they want to share or any comments?
Back when I was yeah.
This guy. So can I get a motion for the?
Motion to adjourn?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, sir.
Appreciate it.
Professional Development Focus Group had 5 staff members that were able to attend the meeting. One also responded via email, and one of the members had to leave early because she got called out for an ARD. So altogether, I think the planning was successful due to the fact that I had excessive amount of members to participate in the focus group. And so even though one got called out and one wasn't able to attend, I still had 4 that was able to participate the whole time for the focus group. Only one subject wasn't really there to get the whole representation of the campus as in subjects, but there was one CTE teacher who had 2 years of experience, two SPED, one department head. So I had the perspective of professional development from a department head, and then I had another special ed teacher who works with students that receive one-to-one assistance. So he really works on these kids on meeting their academic needs on a one-on-one assistance, if it's medical, learning disability, behavior. So that was another component and spectrum that we got to visit that you normally wouldn't visit in your regular setting with just your department. And there was also an English teacher who was an instructional coach who's been teaching for about 20 years, and the special ed department head has also been about 20 years. So that was from your first year teacher to your master teacher. There was a vast amount of experience in the room, so we got different point of views from a first year teacher all the way to a master teacher that's been in education for 20 years. We also had a history teacher who was the first year teacher. So I thought that was real great to get first year, a 2 year teacher in the focus group to see where they're coming from new teachers and all the way to a master teacher, what they felt was important and what made a good professional development and what our campus lacked or didn't lack. And the one person who responded via email was the associate principal of our campus. So I got some administration point of view of professional development through the questions he answered via email. Going into the focus group meeting, I felt very anxious, nervous, but once the meeting started, the anxiety went away, and after the anxiety went away, it was replaced with excitement and connection with the participants in the group. And I also felt like the members were excited to be there. I could see the passion when they was answering the questions, and I just felt like everybody in the room was connecting, like everybody was stating their why it was important, why it's impactful, why they teach, and what it means for them to have professional development that meets their needs. So that way, because at the end of the day, everybody's trying to improve so they can meet the student needs at the end of the day, because the goal is to have student achievement. In evaluating the focus group activity, I didn't feel that anything was bad per se. I think that it was all good. The only thing I would say is that it would have been nice, or you could say better, if I would have been able to have a teacher from each department in the school represented in the focus group, as well as having multiple members from each department, just to get a range, to see the different point of views within the departments, not just the different point of views among outside of each department, but also to see the range of difference among each department. So you got the different point of views, and then just seeing the range of difference, how people's point of views and ideals are just different. It's just to get a perspective on how different and what's really important, and then the things that are similar. What was really good to observe was the similarities that everybody saw, and why it was important, and how it's impactful to have professional development. And then just to see the collaboration among staff members and supporting each other's point of views, that was really great to see, because a lot of times when you're in those large professional developments and you're in the pack and you got some collaboration, but you just don't really get to share a lot. So being in a small group really allowed us just to really support each other and collaborate and just build on each other's point of views. The overall consensus I got from the focus group was there needs to be more small focus, differentiated professional development, collaboration, and creating PD as well as doing professional development, acquiring professional learning that is useful and can be applied in class right at this moment, not just placing it in our toolbox for later and never coming back to it. And lastly, being able to have takeaways, some tangibles, some templates, and being able to get hands-on, practicing the best practices and modeling from the instructors, not just looking at data on the screen and being lectured to and then like, okay, go do it. In concluding the focus group activity, I felt that the agenda was followed. The members were very cooperative and very willing to assist me, so I felt like the agenda flowed and it was run efficiently, as well as the objectives of the meeting were met. Every question was answered, and I felt that everyone shared and got their point across, and it was a great meeting. After going back and viewing and reflecting on the actual activity recording of the focus group, I felt like I had plenty of questions. I might have had too many questions, but I actually felt good about it that I had more content and materials to work with. So I didn't really feel that totally that there was too many questions. Again, the meeting flowed very well. The participants didn't feel overwhelmed or that I was taking too much of their time, and they were very eager to answer the questions and elaborate on their reasons why they stated what they stated. So I felt that even though I went well above the 35-minute requirement and was about an hour long, that the session was very successful and efficient. I felt that the norms were set and the expectations for the meeting at the beginning of the focus group. Participants kept their comments constructive and professional, maintained focus on the topic of the focus group through the entirety of the activity. I think I did a good job of demonstrating effective and efficiently communicating information regarding the purpose of the focus group. Facilitated the focus group and kept the participants on topic and all participating in the group. And then lastly, using guiding questions that facilitated the focus group to identify and addressing specific areas of need, and also helped them to clarify their comments when they were stumbling a little bit. It just kept the flow of the meeting going, and I felt that the openness of the platform of the forum was pretty good. That everybody was eager to contribute and give feedback on each other's statements and built on each other's comments.